Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today I want to talk about the job search. Does it feel like you are sending out all these resumes, cover letters and CVs and hearing crickets? Does it feel like things are not necessarily moving in the way they used to? Well, I'm not surprised because a lot of us are feeling this way. And it means that you're in the right place. So if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe and stick around for more content. And if you don't know who I am already, my name is Tabirade. I'm a career coach that essentially helps individuals, ambitious individuals, navigate this changing world and focus on things that allow them to flourish in their portfolio career, something that they own and control. Now let's be honest, a lot of us are talking about how the career landscape is broken. You know, it's hard to find jobs are falling within the UK, it's just dire. And you're not wrong in saying that. You know, the whole idea of spray and pray in terms of handing out your CVs on LinkedIn or whatever it may be are gone. That does not necessarily exist anymore. And so today I want to talk to you about why this is happening and what you can do to better position yourself for effectiveness when it comes to finding a new role. Now, to help you with this career search, I've put together a number of different tools, two great tools that you can utilize. Number one, you can utilize my CV template. And this is an opportunity for you to see how I structure my CV in order to get roles. But two, a resource of 100 different items that can contribute to you improving your interview skills, improving your CV, finding jobs, utilizing AI. So if this is something that you're interested in, then check the links out below and you can download these resources for yourself. Now, what's actually going on? Well, the first thing is to state that there is a volume and technology issue. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of organizations that are focusing on using these applicant tracking systems, ATSs, to essentially sieve CVs for the best fit. So essentially, there are some CVs sitting in a black hole that don't necessarily even see the light of day when it comes to recruiters and hiring managers. And so the Financial Times talked about this previously. If you don't have the right structure, if you don't have the right keywords, then it's not going to work. Now, this is not about stuffing keywords into your CV, but this is more about positioning. Now, again, I spoke about this sinking into a black hole. This is ridiculous. I believe roughly 55% of applicants don't even hear back from the roles that they're applying to. And actually 41% of them say that it's knocked their confidence in some way, shape or form. And the CIPD basically talks about the fact that actually people are feeling even more frustrated and defeated when it comes to applying for these roles. It makes sense. If you're not even getting feedback. I think I heard some lady applying for like over 1,000 roles, like 6 weeks or something crazy like that before she got her role. It's insane the environment we're in. And this is because there is increased demand in terms of what stakeholders and investors want. But also there is a change generationally in terms of who is actually manning this stuff. Now, of course, there is increased demand, and because of things like AI and tech, that is increasing the input, should we say, in terms of applying for roles, and therefore there's not enough people to actually surface this. In fact, there's not even necessarily enough jobs to even provide the opportunities. Now, 79% of job seekers feel like finding a role is a job in itself. To hear that your contract is not getting extended, to know that you're in this job market with everybody else, it's exhausting. And you know what they say, roughly 70 to 80% of individuals who actually get a job typically get it through networking, which basically means that actually just applying for jobs online is not enough. I've spoken about this so many times before, and I know many other people have spoken about this as well. There is a hidden job market that has never changed. And this hidden job market is something that you need to capitalize on, as opposed to just focusing on the pool where everyone is there. You're going to be turning around, someone's literally going to be there, because it is a competitive market right now, and it's going to get even more competitive. Now, of course, if you are consistently applying for roles and getting rejection, some of you are going to crack. Not everyone is built to be that resilient. And of course, 3 out of 4 individual job seekers basically say they've cracked. They can't continue to do it. And in fact, it affects their confidence. Now, for many of us, we would like for people to at least say, actually, you're not suitable for the role, as opposed to being ghosted and nothing being said at all. I remember my cousin-in-law was telling me about how she was looking for roles, etc., and she would never hear back from this specific type of recruitment agency. It's like I found the same thing, so I complained. I actually complained. And I got to speak to someone. I made sure I shouted at someone, just because it's important to get that feedback and learn. But if you're not getting anything, it makes you feel stupid, and actually it contributes to burnout and fatigue. What ends up happening with this is that you start to begin even more demoralized, and in fact you're just like, you know what, I'm not going to continue down this route anymore. I'm just going to work for a dead-end job or something that isn't even at my level, just to get my foot in the door, or at least make some money. That's what ends up happening. You just give up. And I hate hearing that, because it's like, why do you deserve that? Now, there's a question around whether we've been living in an inflationary environment, and I would argue yes, we have been. But at the same time, that hasn't been fair to those individuals who have been promised X and been given Y. Why is this happening to us? I guess the market is experiencing a situation where reality is kicking in many different ways. This wake-up call is being transitioned by increased volumes of applications, increased usage of tech, and higher demands from stakeholders and investors. Ultimately, staying stuck, staying in a position where you can't necessarily apply for the jobs that you want to, means that you're not necessarily making the right strategic connections for your future growth. You're not necessarily developing the skills that you need in order for you to be in a position that you want to. You can't even make the money that you want to make to invest in the stuff that will secure the future that you want. It's a headache, I'm telling you, it's a headache. Now, of course, there is always a different way to do things. We know that, okay, applying for roles online is the thing to do, but is it the right thing to do? What if there was another way? And as I've alluded to already, there is another job market. Now, this new way of seeing things is more centered around being a job architect. This is why I talk about the portfolio career, the career that you create. And it's about making sure that people find you, as opposed to you just fishing out for other people. Now, again, you can't fully control this stuff. It requires you to be patient. It requires you to be ballsy. But it definitely does work, because it's essentially how I find my roles. I'll be very honest. I had to really think about this the other day and think to myself, how have I found my opportunities? And it's been for a number of ways. It's either been through the fact that I've been referred on by someone, and then through the job that I've done, they've referred me on, etc., etc. So there's been that happening. Or they have come across my CV, I've developed a relationship with them, and over time, I'm talking about 6 to 18 months, they've been able to give me an opportunity. The first opportunity wasn't a fit, but that is how it has worked typically for me. So relationships and networking is fundamental. So really, when I break this down, it comes down to number one, making sure that you have genuine networking and or connections with individuals that can help you. Sitting down with them. There are recruiters or individuals known as engagement leads. They're looking for people like you. They're wanting to help you. They may even look at your CV for you. How do you find these people? Well, this comes down to making sure that you have a strong personal brand and set of assets that really edifies and articulates who you are. This is having a solid CV. The CV from head to toe needs to make sense. From the initial statement at the beginning to the keywords that really relate to your core competencies, to the relevant experience, and then maybe even additional experience and your qualification. Like, it all needs to tell a story. Problem, action, result. I'm not going to go over it again. I say it so many times. Your LinkedIn needs to align to that. And of course, it needs to show some character, because these days people buy into culture. People buy into the values of the individual. And then finally, how are you utilizing tech? Some people may be utilizing tech in the form of Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude to help them think of ideas or generate lines on the CV that could be adapted, or whatever it may be. Maybe they're using tech for interview skills. And again, if you're looking for some AI-driven solutions to help you within this space, then check out the link below. And again, there is 100 items that you can utilize that may support you within this space as well. So these are the 3 key things that you need: networking, a good personal brand, and also tech, the right sort of tech. An article and study by Mind in 2023 stated that if you take control, then there is a deeper sense of satisfaction, and of course you're more likely going to achieve your outcomes. And so in this instance, this is where you have to have that set of beliefs. You have to talk to yourself. What do I want for my future? Is this where it ends? Is this where I give up? There's always a point in our lives where we're like, am I gonna give up now? Do you know what I mean? Like, I've tried, the Lord knows I've tried, but Is it time to give up now? The answer is always going to be no. You might have to level up, you might have to do some research, you might have to spend some time learning. Don't give up. You can't. Well, the truth is you can, but the alternative isn't necessarily pretty. So based on those 3 different things, let's break down the strategies in a bit more detail. So the first one's all centered around your power circle or your networking group or your connections. So of course you understand that I have this proprietary saying, understand, reach, expand, that I say at the end of each video. Let's use that as a framework. So number 1, understand that your first, second and third degree connections are really important. I'm not just talking about LinkedIn, I'm talking about people you know. Is there anybody that you can speak to and basically say, hey, I'm currently looking for a role within the program management space, mainly within digital transformation, and I wanted to know if there was anybody on your books who you could introduce me to. That introduction feature is really important. If that introduction doesn't happen, or you have to do this more cold, the outreach could be the same. You know, you would be following people or connecting with people on LinkedIn who are recruiters or engagement leads and say, hey, I hope all is well. I wanted to know if you had any roles within the program management space, as I'd love to have a conversation and talk about why I'd be a great fit for X role. Please see my CV attached. Whether you say it like that or not, okay, that's not even the point. The point I'm trying to make is that you want to get some sort of sit down conversation. So you got to understand the reach is obviously connecting with them. And so with the reach element, you sit down with them and they're going to ask you questions. Okay, so what did you do before? What are your key skills or roles or whatever it may be? Can you give me a time where you've actually implemented change using your program management as an example? Why are you looking for roles right now? When are you readily available? If you're contracting, what is your rate? What does that rate look like? So you're gonna have to do some research. You're gonna have to understand what that specifically looks like. This isn't an interview, but low-key is an interview because they're checking to see if you are vibesy with them, if you make sense for the world that they're in. And so do you have to do some research on their company? And yeah, you can do all of that stuff, but really and truly, they're recruiters. Look, they're trying to make money like you're trying to make money. If you convince them that you are a gold mine, then they will be happy to help you. What I mean by that is, if you show value, if you show problems, actions, and results, because they will ask you these questions, problems that you solved, actions that you took, and results you've taken, aligned to the specific type of roles that they're offering, whether you found this on LinkedIn jobs or whatever it may be, then they're going to help you. They're going to want to sit down and have conversations with you. So you prep yourself through having a great CV and a great LinkedIn as well. You also want to make sure things online is not all over the place. So clean up your online persona. Type in your name on Google and see what pops up, if anything pops up at all. Another way of connecting with people, if you don't know them at all, is actually looking on LinkedIn jobs and connecting with those individuals who posted those jobs. Now, they don't always come back to you, but it's worth a shot because sometimes when they do, then it can be fruitful. But I want to edify, like from top to bottom. First, second, and third degree connections are the best. Introductions are the best. So use your local network and see if you can actually get some introductions from people. Of course, the expand phase of that is to make sure that you seek quality connections, okay? So you want to connect with people who are proactive. You want to connect with people on a regular basis. So maybe you aim to speak to 5 people a week, okay? It's not always going to be the same 5 people, because sometimes they say, okay, in the next 2 to 4 weeks, let's catch up. Let's see where we're going. Maybe it's in the next 6 weeks, who knows? But you want to have a regularity. And what I would do, if you're going to take this seriously, is create a mini CRM. You don't need to get a tool or whatever it may be. Just do it on Google Sheets and have the name of the individual, their organization, their contact information, the first contact and date, what was, low-key discussed, and just keep on doing that. So you have a follow-up system so you don't get confused, because when you get into this rhythm, I'm telling you, you start to forget, okay? You don't want to do that. So get into a position of contacting these individuals. The second thing to consider is tech, okay? We live in an artificial intelligent world right now, at least we think we are living in that world. And so with that in mind, we have to understand where we're at. What did I say at the beginning? Volume and technology is why there is such high demand, or contributing towards that, in relation to the fact that there is not enough jobs in the market. So you can kind of like play the game of tech, but you can't fully rely on it. So you can utilize tools if you've got premium features on LinkedIn they have some tools in there in terms of helping you understand your skills and everything else, and whether you're a top match. So when you go onto jobs and you click on a job, you'll see whether it says you're a top candidate, and depending on the type of sort of like tier you're on for LinkedIn, it will give you a certain amount of, I guess, opportunities to highlight whether this is a top choice or not. Always makes sense to utilize it as a top choice. There's also a resume.io. That's another thing that you can use where you can upload your CV, and it can give you some suggestions and or improvements, or change it in order for things to improve. Now, of course, like, this is all great, you know, that we've got these things. You can just use bog standard ChatGPT if you've got the pro version, and or Gemini and or Claude. Some may use DeepSeek or some of these other ones, but ChatGPT or Gemini makes sense if you're going to utilize this stuff. Now, let me caveat this. This is not, oh, let me throw my CV in and let it just write everything and then no, you can't be doing that. It doesn't make sense. They'll catch you. Okay, they'll catch you. So what you're doing here is you do start off by seeing what the generative AI suggests, and then you look through it line by line. You look through it line by line, and you make the changes and additions that are required, because it's not going to say it in the right way. It's just not. It may even say it better than you, but you need to check that. And I think what's going to be important here is that in your CV, you have two options. You can highlight what the problem was that you solved at the beginning of that experience, and then highlight the actions in form of bullet points, 4 to 6 bullet points, and then align for the specific tangible benefit or result. That is going to be key. So spending time and utilizing AI to help you do that is going to be very, very important. And of course, for the expand feature or expand phase, you can use something like Google Warm-Up for practicing interviews if you're successful. Okay, as an example, it mainly focuses on tech-specific type of roles like project manager, business analyst, and all that kind of stuff there. But again, you don't even need to use that. You can use AI for this stuff, like a generative AI in your pocket. So don't be fooled in thinking that you have to use all these glamorous tools. It is a myth. Yes, I'm providing a list of 100 that you can utilize for different things, but again, you may not even necessarily need to use that as well. I want you to understand that you have the power, because once you start to become heavily reliant on AI, that's where you lose. And this is why there is a lot of people out there who are relying on AI and not getting what they want. Some may argue, actually AI is all I used and actually it worked to me. That's fair enough. But we have to remember what we're feeding into AI, i.e. the prompts and or experience or skills or whatever it may be, heavily determines the quality of the output from that generative AI. This is another way of saying, if you didn't do the work beforehand, it's gonna spit out stuff that doesn't show like you've done the work. Regardless of how amazing it sounds, there needs to be congruence. The final thing is your personal brand. And how do you develop this? I've already kind of alluded to the fact that your CV kind of supports this, but you have to understand that your personal brand is how you communicate who you are as an individual. And so with that in mind, in terms of the type of portfolio career you're creating, what is your unique selling proposition? What are you saying that you can do well for people? I help organizations become more efficient by driving digital transformation, as an example. Or I save money for financial firms looking to get into the blockchain sector. I'm just making this up. But what I'm saying is that I'm starting with how, like, the benefit, efficiency, save money, improve, increase. Like, what's the change that you bring? What's the impact that you bring? Because once you understand that as the one-liner, then you want to go into reach. This is where you improve your profile. The picture needs to be on point. The header needs to be on point. What you have in the header, it needs to have, again, something that talks to that unique selling proposition. The header text needs to be on point. Okay, not too much. This is where you can get generative AI to just do what it needs to do. What is in your experience needs to match what is in the CV. It may not perfectly match, but it needs to match in some way, shape, or form. And so this is where you start to create reach, because this creates attraction marketing. Now, you create that attraction when you start to like on comments on LinkedIn, when you start to leave comments on LinkedIn, when you start to produce your own content. And this is where you want to actually use your LinkedIn to connect with people and say, hey, I'm admired by what you do, And that is proven by the fact that you actually clicked on their profile. So let them know that you've clicked on their profile by clicking on it and say, I'd love to have a conversation to learn more about what you do. That's how you start to talk to people. You learn more about what they do because you genuinely want to be in their position or be in their organization, whatever it may be. And you say at the end, thank you for this conversation. I really do appreciate it. I want to ask this question. Who is one person who you think I would benefit from having a conversation with? Let them make the decision there and then, rather than I'll get back to you, because they don't always do. They'll take forever. Forever meaning never. So ask them. I'd love to know. I'd love to continue these great fruitful conversations. And then in return, you can say, is there anything I can do for you? That's it. Sometimes you don't always have to say that. The point being made though is that there is an opportunity for you to find value and create value. Now, transitioning on into my own personal story, I started contracting back, I think it was 2021, I want to say. And my first contract came through the fact that I formed a relationship with a recruiter through a friend. Somebody I didn't really know that much back then, but they've become a solid friend now because of what contracting has done for me. Now, the initial reason I got into the contracting space is because I needed a sense of freedom. I was fed up with being tied down and I wanted to make more money for what I was doing. Now, do I really need to be in this space now? Some may argue yes, some may argue no. But the point being made is it has served its purpose in doing what it needed to do, all because I networked with the right person. And so that happened with the first job. The second contract that I got was because I did such a great job in the first contract. I knew somebody who apparently was working with that space. I had no idea, and they referred me on to somebody else. Sat down with them, had a conversation, did something that I've never done before, workforce and resourcing lead. And then the rest was history because I stuck with that individual and another person who I became very close friends with. And we did 3 different jobs, contracting gigs together over the next 18 months or so within the same client, until I decided actually I don't want to do this no more. I want to break. Took a 4.5 month break, and then I was found via, I think it was CV Library, because I paid for a promotion thing and I also had a really solid CV. They contacted me in January and said, hey, you want to do this role? I said, yeah, makes sense. And then I did that one. So that was one where I got through a job board, but then the contract after that was with the same client through a referral because I did such a great job in that space. And I've got evidence for some of this stuff because I've received letters of recommendation to highlight that I'd done a sterling role in at least 2 of those contracts. But again, it was through referrals. Rishi Sunak came into play and had this general election. Then I was out of a contract and then I was found again via similar means. And so yes, some of it was through job boards, but the majority of it was through referrals as well. So use the hidden job market, connect with people, do a good job, and continue that way. I'm telling you, gold is in front of you, but you just don't rate it as gold right now. So please try these opportunities if you haven't tried them already. Again, like I stated before, if you want to utilize the CV template that I use, or at least have 100 different AI-driven item solutions that can contribute towards your job search or improving your CV or interview skills, then click on the link below for more information. And of course, if you want to see more videos tailored around portfolio careers, independent consulting, and everything of that nature, then feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.